The Toronto Blue Jays are making some moves as today is the arbitration deadline, so they got to get some deals done by the end of the day. And we got a Cody Bellinger update as well. The Blue Jays seemed that they were out on him, but they're back in. So we'll break that down and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, this is a big day for the Toronto Blue Jays. They got to get some arbitration deals done. This is always a tricky process for major league teams because you don't want to head to a hearing with some of your star players. You don't want to head to a hearing with any of your players. Now, this has always been kind of a black eye on baseball because you got to argue why a player is worth what you think he is, and that a player has to try to prove his worth to you despite going out there 162 times a year and showing what he's really made of. So I've never liked this part of baseball. It's always a tricky day. It's always a day where teams and players don't always get along, but hopefully the Blue Jays get whatever they need to get done today. And Cody Bellinger, I mean, this would be a huge ad for the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously, we know that they struck out on Juan Soto, they struck out on Shohei Ohtani, and Cody Bellinger is the last remaining hitter that could potentially move the needle for this Blue Jays team. So a lot of interesting things to break down on this episode, Nick, but it's a busy time in this day.
Yeah, the fact that Bellinger hasn't signed yet is honestly probably a good thing for the Jays. A quick reminder to hit the subscribe button before we get into it. About 70% of you guys who are watching aren't, so scroll down, and if you aren't already, make sure to hit that button. It means a lot to Peter and I. And Peter, let's get into the first topic of the day, which is, like you said, the Jays making moves. They have officially made already one move in arbitration, and then there's the other ones to follow later today. And let's just start with the move they have made, which was source Danny Jansen, and Blue Jays settled at $5.2 million, avoiding arbitration. This is his last year before he enters free agency, so like Thomas says here, an extension would have been nicer, but here we are, and the projection was bang on. So, Peter, what are your thoughts on this? Like Ben Nichols just said, it is his final ARB year before hitting free agency. I would have liked to get an extension done, but, I mean, I'll take this as a very reasonable number for the catcher like Danny Jansen and the caliber that Danny Jansen is, albeit with injuries. It's good to get this out of the way early, and do you have any thoughts on, I guess, Danny Jansen or this number?
Yeah, I like the number. I mean, there's no choice really in arbitration. Something has to get done. A player can't just leave before those 6 years of service time. So, I mean, it was kind of inevitable that they would bring Danny Jansen back. However, I would have liked to see an extension as well. But we look at the Blue Jays' perspective. Maybe they're waiting. Maybe they're waiting to see if Danny Jansen could put together a solid season of 100 games. We've seen him be very productive over 60, 65, 70 games, but we've yet to see it over the course of 100 plus games. Now, he is a catcher. He's not going to play a full 162, but you want to see him remain healthy and you want to see him be in that lineup because he is a game changer. He's got big time power. He's someone that pulls the ball with regularity on a Blue Jays team that wasn't able to do that last year. So he's a very important player for what the Blue Jays are trying to do this season. And yeah, I'd like to see an extension, but maybe the Jays are waiting to see if they can maybe get that dollar figure down a little bit because he hasn't been able to stay healthy in his career.
Yeah, it could also go up depending how it goes. And looking at the projected, I guess, arbitration amounts in this from MLB PTR, it's usually very accurate. As you can see, the Danny Jansen one was basically right on the money. I'm suspecting that most of these end up getting done. Is there any of these that jump out at you, Peter? We've seen Nate Pearson down there at $800,000, Alejandro Kirk. The biggest one really was Danny Jansen, just from the perspective of a contract extension. Would have been nice. It would have been hopefully likely by the end, maybe now by the end of the season. But any of these jump out at you, or do you think they're all just pretty standard and the Jays should be able to get it done? So we did see a couple years ago with Bichette and Manoah, they didn't settle on an arbitration number, which ultimately, who knows how that affected anything. But it's interesting to discuss at least.
Yeah, we see a lot of value plays here as we go up and down this list. Vladdy's going to be making 20-ish million. That's close to what he was making last year. Jordan Romano, one of the better closers in baseball, to be making close to 8. Kevin Biggio, 4 is a little bit high for me, but I guess like you can't really fight these projections. Like they're pretty bang on most of the time. Adam Simber, I wouldn't really
He's gone now, I
entertain
think.
the idea of bringing him back. Yeah, he is. So Trevor Richards, I mean, that's good value as well. You see, this is what allows major league teams to go out and spend on big-time free agents. It's the fact that they can keep these guys that are under contract for at least 6 seasons at a reasonable price tag, and then they can go out and splurge on other free agents. So I'd like to see them get all of them done. As I said earlier in the video, I cannot stand the arbitration process. I just think it's toxic. It's toxic that your employer has to kind of crap on you and not give you the respect that you deserve just in order to save a few bucks or shed some payroll there and shed some payroll there. I don't like that aspect of it. Like I said, it's a black eye on baseball. I'd like to see them get all the deals done and avoid arbitration with pretty much everyone on that list that we see over there.
I agree. And shout out Genesis Cabrera. It was one of the better acquisitions from Ross Atkins, only going to cost 1.4. But let's move on now to the report that came out. And this is a major Chapman and Bellinger update, mainly focusing on Bellinger here. But if you're a Chapman fan, you will like this one as well. And here's what they had to say. It basically was, I believe it was from Jim Bowden, I believe. It says, who do you think the Blue Jays could add before spring training, and what do you think the Blue Jays need to salvage the offseason? And Bowden says that the Blue Jays have a legitimate shot at bringing Chapman back, and they have engaged with Bellinger as well. I'll be surprised if they don't land one of them, with the other one signing with the Cubs or Giants. Now, Peter, this is actually a bit of a surprise, and again, it's a pretty notable reporter in Jim Bowden. I believe it was him. It was one of the notable reporters at the very least. He says he would be surprised if the Jays don't land one of them, and the longer these kind of contracts take to sign, I'm more so leaning towards that as well, because the Jays, we knew were going to play the waiting game, specifically with Cody Bellinger, and I guess Matt Chapman in this case, and we know they have the funds to spend. I would love to bring, really at this point, either one of them back, though I would prefer Bellinger given our current roster construction.
Yeah, I would prefer Bellinger as well. We spoke about Aurelvis Martinez in yesterday's video. That is definitely someone that can help with the immediate impact of the third base position. I don't know if he's ready yet. I don't know if Addison Barger's ready yet. I don't know if Damiano Palmagiani's ready yet, but I guess that's why the Blue Jays went out and acquired Isaiah Kiner Falefa. It's to fill that in a stopgap role, the third base position. So I wouldn't bring Matt Chapman back unless it's a 2-year deal, and I doubt he's going to want to accept that considering his hip surgery that took place a couple off seasons ago, and considering that he's not getting any better and he's not getting any younger either. So I think he's going to try to cash in on this final deal. The Cubs and the Giants will definitely be involved in his mix over there. And I would stray away from Matt Chapman if it's anything bigger than a 2-year deal. And I have strong doubts that it'll be anything less than a 4 or 5-year deal for Chapman. So I'm looking at him as kind of a long shot possibility here, but Bellinger definitely fits this current roster a lot better. He's a lefty with power, can play all outfield positions, can play some first base as well. And the Jays have yet to sign another first base / DH. So they're going to need a little bit of relief in that sense. So Bellinger coming in would help solve a lot of problems and fits the bill of versatility that Ross Atkins and the rest of the front office are looking for.
And when you think back to Kevin Kiermaier and when he said, or I guess he was interviewed after him signing, he had a lot less confidence in saying that he would be the everyday center fielder. So if they go ahead and sign Cody Bellinger is still an elite defender in the outfield. He can play most of the days, and days where they want to switch up stuff with Vladdy. Bellinger, like you said, has experience at first base as well. I mean, it fits perfectly. The price tag we thought was going to be maybe high. I don't know if it approaches $200 million now with the way this market has been going. The market seems to be a lot less active than we thought it would have been, even though it's a very weak class. And like you said with Chapman, he'll probably get a 4-year deal from the Cubs or the Giants or someone. And I hope the Jays, I wouldn't be upset per se, but I would rather let them have the young guys, especially going over the next couple of years. There's a lot of prospects that are going to be coming up, and if they do re-sign Matt Chapman, you'd have to expect that a trade is coming. But any quick final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think Bellinger has to be your target here if you're the Blue Jays. I don't care about the price tag personally. It's not my money, so I've been on record saying that. But $200 million for a guy who was a former MVP, who had a really good bounce back year last season, and he's only 27, 28 years of age. I mean, what do you expect? You're going to have to pay. To get something good, you got to pay. And maybe it's a little bit rich, but the Blue Jays have that money, and they were ready to spend $700 million on Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, different types of players here. You would make a lot of that money back with Shohei in your lineup. Maybe not the case with Cody Bellinger, but he's someone that helps your ball club, and he'll help sell tickets, especially in a year where you have a lot of renovations and a lot of expectation put on this team. And right now, there hasn't been much done to address those expectations. You're going into the season with largely the same roster, maybe even arguably a worse roster than you had last season, and you expect people to pay a premium price to entry for the Rogers Center. I just don't see that happening. So I see them being aggressive. I see them spending money because it'll be very hard to sell this team to the fan base. I think they're they're good. Still going to watch every day like I always do, but it's going to be hard to sell the casual fan or just kind of the in and out fan of Blue Jays Nation if you're not spending money and if you're not actively trying to make this team better. So it's Bellinger bust for me.
Yeah, I think they're going to surprise a lot of people with their next move. I think it'll be a big one, and we'll have you covered for that. But if you want to check out our video from yesterday, click on your screen now. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.